Erev Tov Renana. Good morning in Kansas City, San Francisco, Cincinnati, Philadelphia. No favorites here. Welcome. My name is Wayne Firestone on behalf of the American-Israel Friendship League. We're excited to be here with you on this Sunday for a little bit of a virtual tour to a fun and funky place, Haifa. How about all of you? We've got a great audience today. So whatever, you're in hot weather or cold weather, we got people from Providence. We've got people from Coconut Creek. We have people in Detroit. We have people calling in from the Netherlands. And of course, we have Tamar in Haifa, who's going to keep us all honest. So watch out, Shahar. We've got a real Haifa eat out there. Denver, I'm seeing. Yeah, Charlottesville, Vancouver, Canada. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Modi'in, giving a little love to Haifa, all of us today. So let's begin with a little community building moment. Put some specific memory you have of Haifa. You're gonna see a lot of new things today and some old things from Shahar on our virtual tour. You're gonna take a cable card ride. You're gonna do all the fun stuff that you might remember. Yeah, Linda already put out there the cable car. Put something in there, great falafel. You know, I don't know if it's just mythic, but when I first visited Haifa in the 80s, it was like, you got to go to Haifa for falafel. So whatever it is, put something in the chat, share some of your memories. We do have someone from Cincinnati, so we know you're looking for a little distraction to keep, you know, the anxiety away. Perfect place. The Baha'i Gardens, of course, absolutely part of everybody's memories. I don't know, for me, I remember the early 80s, David Broza singing about Haifa. You know, it was this worker town, sort of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv got all the attention, but there was a place with some grit. There was a place with, you know, a real resilience, I think. He talked about people turning off the electricity at 10 p.m. so that, you know, that they could conserve. You know, he's thinking back to his childhood in younger days. So Shahar Fertig, this is a city that people really can relate to. I was old enough to remember David Broza singing about Haifa. You're probably too young to remember everything about Haifa, but the line that stuck with me about his song is Haifa Irim Atid, a city with future. So this is now 30, 40 years later. Tell us about the today of Haifa that you know and that you grew up with, that today, is it really a city of the future even as we speak today?
So interestingly, the Haifa appears in Alt Neuland, Herzl's book, in his vision of the state of Israel, which would be an autonomy under the Ottoman Empire. And there the visitors begin, they return to Israel and they see the marvels that the Jewish people have done in Israel in the 20 years that they were gone. And they begin in the Haifa port, which did not really exist back then, but a large port, industrial zone that Herzl has visioned. And indeed, it was born as a city of the future because Haifa is only 200 years old. If you came there 200 years ago, you would see mostly wilderness and forest and mountain. For me, I was a student in Haifa University. I did my master's degree in health promotion there. And for me, Haifa was always... I always called it Vancouver, the Vancouver of Israel, because it's on a mountain, it has a forest, it has a beautiful sea, it has nature, it has all what you need to have a great, wonderful city. It may have one problem of, how do you say it, of a discussion about health and also relations, PR, because public relations, because of the industrial zone. The industrial zone was established 100 years ago in the days of the British Mandate by Jewish engineers. Today it's the biggest and the heaviest industrial zone of Israel. That is wonderful. It's a wonder of one of the wonders of Israel and powers of economic power. But also it disturbs many people in the thought of how can we make a healthy city, a beautiful city with no stacks in the horizon. So Haifa is a fun place. It doesn't have as much clubs as Tel Aviv, but it has many great restaurants, and it's a nice, pleasant place to live if you like nature, if you like the sea, and if you like culture. You have everything there.
Well, I like nature. I like the sea. I like culture. So take us away, Shahar. I've seen this presentation you've put together. I know we're going to cover a lot of ground indoors and outdoors and really tap into the many, many memories that people are already sharing from our audience. And they are warm memories, and they are of a city with a lot of distinction. So please, let's get going.
Yes, actually, I read your experiences of Haifa from working at the ports and missing trains, and it's really, I would say, it's exciting to read this, stories from before I was born, your own personal stories. So maybe you can begin the presentation with a slide that of the topic that most people know Haifa about. The Baha'i gardens, the beautiful gardens, the center, the world center of the Baha'i religion, with their world library, the court, and the shrine of the Bab that we can see with the golden dome. This is covering the remains of the founder of this religion. So I chose this beautiful picture to remind us the beauty of the gardens, but as I know that you already spoke about the Baha'i gardens in a previous lecture, I just wanted to pay respect to them and move on. Today we are going to talk about the less known places of Haifa, and also I will give tips and how to travel Haifa today with public transportation only, which can make a wonderful 1 or 3 days of tours of Haifa that you can see more and more things on your own. And what you see here is the Israel train, the line that goes, this line comes from Tel Aviv, it goes to Haifa. But today from the airport, you can take the train and be in Jerusalem in half hour, be in Tel Aviv in 10 minutes, and get to Haifa within an hour or so. It goes also east. There are new railroad to the east to Afula and Petah Tikva and other places. And here you can see the train passes in front of a building, this gray building that is built into the sea, this concrete building, which belongs to the Oceanographic and Limnological Research Institute of Israel that research the sea, on the ecological and physical aspects and different aspects. It is located on Tel Shikmona, which is an ancient settlement from the days of King David and King Solomon that had a little city up there between the trees, Tel Shikmona. So the train passes by this building, and then you can take on my tour, on this tour that I'm giving you now. I took the train actually from Naharia. I came from the north with my daughter, my son, and my mother. And we took the train to Merkazit HaMifratz. Let's go to the next slide. So about the history of the trains of Israel, this is a station that was built in 1904, in the days of the Ottoman Empire. This building is gone because it was exploded in 1946 by the Etzel, but later another building was built, and basically we will talk later about the Technion, the building of this central train station that will connect 3 continents: Europe through Istanbul, Asia through Damascus, and Africa through Egypt, and also Saudi Arabia. This train station, that it said about it that it's the only one in the world that sent trains to 3 different continents, was one, and the plans to enlarge the port of Haifa were some of the reasons to establish the Technion, to choose this, to establish the Technion in Haifa. You can see in the background the Mount Carmel, which today is an entire city on it, but you can see the wilderness, and there is nothing on it. This picture is estimated to be 1931, not too far backward, almost 90 years. So today this place is used as the History of the Trains of Israel Museum. You can visit it also next to Merkazit HaMifratz by walking distance. And let's next slide, please. And here we can see the map of Haifa, or an aerial photography. On the northern side, on the upper side, you can see the new port of Haifa, the largest port of Israel. The second is in Ashdod. And just recently, another port was established in the same area to bring more fuel to the industrial area. Because we don't produce oil here in Israel, we bring it in ships into the port. The city itself, you can see on the where the green winds with the buildings, the little buildings, you can see how many forests or valleys with trees are within the city. Each of them is a place to hike. So every neighborhood in Haifa has a beautiful place to hike. On the next slide, we can see my mother, Shoshana, my little daughter, Geffen, and Shaked. They are already sitting inside the cable car, Cable Express it is called. This cable car was first, you will not guess, maybe try to guess what year was it first suggested to establish this project. Try to guess. So the first try to build it was, the first suggestion was 1965. 1965. And only last year this project was opened. You can see here we sit inside the cable car. We just took off from the station. It has 6 stations, but only 3 operate now. One is just next to the train station that we took. We went from the Israel train. So we went maybe 2 minutes walking to enter this cable car. On the top of the mountain, you can see Haifa, the building of Haifa University. And there behind the cars, you can see that we are arriving to the Technion. So one station, Merkazit HaMifratz, by the train station. The second station is at the Technion. And the third station is up the Haifa University. It's about 3 miles long, and it takes you up about 1,300 feet in 19 minutes. The great thing about it that it saves you the ride in a bus or in a car to the places where you cannot find parking, like the Haifa University or the Technion. And also, of course, saving a lot of time on the road. It can take more than an hour to drive this in rush time. So 19 minutes from the first station to the last on the top of the mountain is a wonderful thing. Here you can see the buildings of the Technion. The Technion, for those who don't know it, was established in 1913. here on the horizon, you can see the bay, the Haifa Bay. You can see the industrial zone. We will see it from, we'll have another option to see it. You can see the forest around the Technion, and yes, other buildings of the Technion that you can see here from above. And the Technion was, as I mentioned, it was, they chose to build the Technion as a Hebrew teaching academy that will focus on engineering and on science. And until today, it's leading in all kinds of engineering in Israel, in medicine. And the reason to choose it, to build it there, were the port and the train station. On the next slide, we will see the old Technion. Oh, so this is the campus of the Technion. This is where, and you can see the campus of the Technion, and on the top there, Haifa University, the two institutes, the forest that is between them, and how they are integrated to the city, which is scattered all around the mountain. And on the next slide, we can see the construction of the Technion, of the first building of the Technion in 1913. Those of you who like architecture and know the building of Gymnasia Herzliya in Tel Aviv, this first building that was built for Hebrew teaching high school was done by the same architect, and were like twin buildings. And on the next slide, we will see it finished today. And today, this is used as the Technoda, the Madatech, which is a science museum. The historical building is open for visitors. And on the next slide, we can see some of the different, examples of what you see inside. This is teaching children how to make energy, electric energy from water, old new way to make electricity. Optical illusions are, you can play with optical illusions and to understand how magicians cut heads, and liquids and physics, all these things. A very fascinating and interactive museum, which is worth visiting with children. Next slide. We are going on with the cable car. We didn't go off in the Technion. We went further. You can see on the back the industrial zone. Again, below to the right, and the previous station going over the forest and all the way to the Haifa University. I must say that I'm not used to cable cars. We don't have many cable cars in Israel. We have the Masada one and the old Haifa cable car. But this one, every station that it leaves, it gives you a thrust. So it's for me, it was a little scary every time leaving a station, but lying on this cable in the air, but beautiful. Next slide. And we arrived to the Haifa University. This is called the Eshkol Tower, after the former prime minister. This is the main building, although more and more buildings are being built. Yes, Rosh Hanikra, cable car, yes. So the Haifa University building is built on top of the mountain and is apparent from half of the country. If you are in Caesarea or Hadera, or you are in Galilee and Rosh Hanikra, in many places around Israel, you can see this tower standing on top of the mountain. And there on the 23rd floor, I was my school of public health, but back then, but they have a new building now. Next slide. We are walking now from the Haifa University, which is the large building you can see there in the middle. And we will walk together now into the forest to the right and downwards, and into the forest to a beautiful trail that is called the Road of the Generations. On the next image, you can see this piece of land enlarged, and the Road of the Generations is a project that was initiated by Reuven Hecht. Reuven Hecht was a son of a shipping family, and he did many things in his life, including supporting and helping Jewish people leave Nazi Germany in 1935 and come illegally to come to Israel. He established the biggest, until today, storage of wheat at the Haifa port, and also initiated many things in the Haifa University. And Haifa and Haifa University have many places and things named after him. For 60 years, since he was young, he liked collecting archaeological things that are from the land of Israel, and later the Hecht Museum was built and named after him. And what we are going to see here on the next slide, we are going to walk through a path, the Road of the Generations. Oh, before that, yes, okay. So I will just finish that Reuven Hecht initiated saving structures that were exposed in excavations when large projects of construction exposed different ancient structures, and basically what many times they are doing, they are burying them down. And what Reuven Hecht wanted to do is to save these structures and to bring them to Haifa, so they will have a safe place so people can enjoy and see them. In this photo, we can see a young stinkhorn mushroom fungi that just came out of the ground. Those stinkhorns produce when they are adults. This is a very young one. It just came out of the ground, but when it's becoming an adult or ripening, it has more than 40 different volatile compounds, including sulfides and terpenes and other materials that attract different insects and in order to take the spores to different places. And this is why mainly because of the sulfides, it stinks, and that's why it's called the stinkhorn. So you can see it popping out between the pine needles. And on the next slide, we can see more nature of this path, the path of the generation. The anemone coronaria, or kalanit, as we call it in Israel, is just blossoming. These pictures, I took them less than a week ago, so it's really fresh. Next one. And here we can see the beautiful cyclamens that were used in the past to make soap from the bulb. I see people saying they cannot hear me. So I guess it's not a problem. So this is the cyclamen. The cyclamen, you can see the beautiful leaves of it, and maybe we can see it again. And you can see the pattern on the leaves. Every bulb of cyclamen has a different pattern of the leaf. And if you compare one bulb to in one bulb, all the leaves look the same. But if you compare one to another, it's like a fingerprint. On the next slide, And
Shahar, I just wanted to ask, when you showed that first slide of the colony, that usually is the signal that the blooming seasons really started in Israel, which is often a lot earlier than other parts of the world. Are you seeing, people have asked about climate change, whether you've been able to see any changes in the patterns of the blooming season, or is it remaining pretty constant?
So I can tell you that some meteorologists say that you can't conclude from those changes that we see from year to year. I can tell you that this year, until now, we had very little rains. And it does feel that the rains come in stronger, in more compact time. Maybe the same amount of water in the end of the day, but instead of coming easy, they come harder. It's really difficult to say about the period of the blooming. First, because I'm not an expert of that, and second, because it is affected by so many different parameters, like the cold of the night and the amount of water and the amount of sunlight hours. So it's really difficult for me to say something.
My experience is that Israeli families know when the blooms are coming, because they're out there doing the tealing the minute that there are sightings of the different flowers, regardless of what the season is. And so I don't know what you've seen over the last couple of weeks, but I take it there have been a lot of people out there in the beautiful hills that you're exploring.
Yeah, the Rakefet, the cyclamen, is covering many forests. It's an amazing view. Some places you can walk through carpet of cyclamens, or Rakefet, as someone asked. Yes, it's Rakefet. And also the Kalanit, the anemone is also, now is the season, and in the south of Israel there's festivals where you can walk through carpets of these anemones. What is one thing that I think lately in the last couple of years, as I lived in a beautiful forest, that people in Israel, we think that the spring begins in March, but actually, I think biologically, the spring in Israel begins in February, because now the blossom really begins. And yes, it's still the cyclamens and the anemones, but the blossom begins, and it will go on until April. Most of it will end by April. So if you want to enjoy Israeli spring, this is the time, in my opinion, although we consider it winter. So here on this in this picture, we can see the Dama Mesopotamica. Dama Mesopotamica is a type of a deer that was prevalent in Israel and in the Carmel mountain some 200 or 300 years ago. And unfortunately, they were all hunted. And in Hebrew, we call it Yachmur. And they say that the name Yachmur is coming from the word Chamra, which is the brownish red color of soil that is named this way, and it's the name of the color of the animal as well. So from the Chamra soil, we have the Yachmur, Dama Mesopotamica. The story of these animals in Israel is fascinating, and it goes back to 1975. As the brother of the Shah, of the Irani leader, the Shah, before the Irani revolution in 1978, he came to Israel and he wanted to have horns of an ibex larger than he had in his palace. And Israel hosted him and let him look for such an ibex. And he came with a very special telescope on his gun to see that they don't shoot for no reason an animal that the horns will be not long enough. This way or another, they found the right ibex. He shot it, and he offered in return to buy to the person that was in charge of the nature preservation authorities that let him do it. He offered him 2 Mercedes-Benz. But Mr. Yoffe declined the offer, and he said, look, I don't want the cars, but what we do want for the state of Israel is to bring back the Dama Mesopotamica, that we don't have it anymore in Israel, and you have some of, and the Shah had some herd of these animals. So the deal was done, and the promise was made. And in 1978, Israel got a message from Iran saying the revolution is beginning. If you want to get your deers, come take them now. And in order to get them, a specialist was sent from Israel to Iran in the days of the revolution, and he managed to catch a few of these animals. But unfortunately, when someone asked him what is he doing with them, he said it's for Israel, and they were confiscated. And they made him leave the country. But in a brave act, on the way out, he went and caught 4 females of this of the Dama, and he managed to bring them on an airplane. Imagine yourself that went to Holland. On the way, they arranged a special stop for it in Israel, and later. It's certainly a he. Later, these females it was discovered that he chose well because these females were pregnant. After that, a male was brought from some zoo, and today we estimate that we have some hundreds, more than 300 of them, and many of them were released to the nature in Mount Carmel and in other places in the Galil. So I never saw them. My sister, she told me about a few months ago that she saw one. But if you walk the trails of the Carmel, you might see one of these wonderful animals. This picture was taken in Israel. So this guy is probably walking in the forest, and hopefully we will see him one day. By the way, the center where they are bred is next to Haifa University in the mountain, where there is also shelter for vultures and eagles and other types of animals. On the next slide, I think we are still in the nature. Yes, we are walking into the trail of the generations. Here is my little boy. And in the edge of the trail, you can already see one of these buildings that were saved by Reuven Hecht and his mission. So this building that we are approaching now was brought from the Negev, from a place that a big airport was built for the Israeli Air Force. And I'm not sure what exactly was it. It was on the path of what? Maybe it was of the road of the airplane itself or the buildings, but it needed to be taken down. So the stones were taken off one by one and later reassembled here. This house is from the Iron Age, which is, we call it also the Israelite Age. So it will be in the days of David and Solomon, more or less. It's called a house of 4 dimensions. You can see there is a central room in the middle, and then 3 rooms around it, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The biggest one in the end, it was probably the place where the people of the house would sleep, this house that we see now, and the other rooms maybe were used as kitchens or storage, etc. What do you need in a house? So this is one of the buildings, and it's free. It's free of charge. There is no gate. You can just walk there. I bet if you camp there, you put a tent there, nobody even will approach you for a night or two. And we are going out of the building. This is the door. So this is a house that where 3,000 years ago people lived in the Negev desert. And here we can see it from the top. Why is it called the path of generations? I didn't say, because in this path you can walk through history of many generations. Actually, on the next slide, I think we will see the oldest building. Yes, this is the oldest building. This one is about 6,000 years old. It's the estimate. Nobody knows if it's 5,500 or 7,000 years old, but this is how human beings lived in the land of Israel, also in the desert. The central circle was the home, and around it you can see like petals of flower. There are different rooms. Again, maybe one was a kitchen, maybe one was a storage, maybe one was used to grind the seeds and the wheat to flour. And the building was found like this. It's very short, it's maybe 2 feet tall. And the idea of such an ancient building, think about it, we are talking about 6,000 years ago, let's say 4,000 before Common Era. And what do you need in order to survive? You need a little shelter so the animals will not come in, the insects will not crawl into your house, the serpents maybe will have a little block, and the jackals will not steal your food. And on top of it, the archaeologists say there was a roof that was made from leather and from branches of trees. Was moved from its original site, and Israel has so many archaeological sites that some of them are just disturbing the constructions of buildings, and usually they are being buried, and a new building will be built on top of them. And some of them, if you are Reuven Hecht and you say, hey, this building, people should see it, then you have the funds and the power to give it a new home. On the next slide, we can see a barn also was brought from the Negev together with 3 other barns of the same shape. And this was from a city from the days of Uzziah, the king of Judea. So, and this should be about 2,700 years old. Next slide. We can see my boy is climbing on a structure which is broken to half, and this structure that he's climbing was used to break the olives. Maybe some of you know that there should be a big round stone standing vertically on top of it, and you put the olives on top of this platform that, again, it should be circular. Now it's broken to half. and the vertical stone will roll around, crush the olives. And later, on the next slide, we can see the olives were taken into baskets and placed into the holes, and a big wooden beam would press the olives and to extract the oil. Next image, I think it's a video, and we can see into the ways that pressed the olives. So the beam would be placed in the wall of the city on the other side. This hole that we see was holding a big, strong beam of wood. And from here, the wood will go and go over the baskets of the olives. The big ways of stone that we see now would be tied to the beam of wood. And here in this hole, the baskets of the olives are inside. The ways are being lifted by ropes, and the beam presses the olives to extract the oil. Later, the oil and the water that are coming together are they wait until the oil comes up, and then you can skim the oil. Next slide. And this is the last one of this the generational path. This is a tomb that is coming from the coastal area by Palmachim. By the way, now I recall that I had a mistake before. The first building, the farm building that we saw. No, you know what? Never mind. So this is a tomb that is estimated to be about 3,000 years before Common Era. It was found together with few hundreds of these tombs. Inside, they found the remains either in a box, a stone box that had the bones of the person, or ash. So this was a burial, Canaanite burial before the time of the Hebrews or Jewish, and yes, this all seen walking distance from the Haifa University and from the cable express, the new cable car. There are some signs along the way, so you can walk and see the signs and have some explanation, and also find more information on the Hecht Museum website. On the next slide, a little bit more of nature there. You can see the acorns of the common oak of Israel. You can see that many of the acorns were being eaten. They are loved. The wild boars love them. The damas may eat them, and also rodents and insects love them. I was told that if you break them and treat them, the flour of the acorns is sold for about $50 a kilo. $50 a kilo, maybe even more. It's a little bitter, and it's a bit difficult to extract it and to prepare it for eating, but it is considered a superfood. Next slide. You can see a little round in the museum, in the Hecht Museum. We went back from the Trail of the Generations into the Hecht Museum, which is below the Haifa University, also free of charge. We can go to the next slide. This is the Hecht Museum in Haifa University has many different findings from many different periods, but here I chose to focus on boats. And here's a little clay statue of a boat you can see three figures that are probably holding pedals. And this little boat was found in the sea, so you can see many shells and worm homes that are stuck on it. And so this is like, for one, a little thing that caught my eye. And the next one, we can see maybe the jewel of the museum. This is called the Ma'agan Michael boat, named after the kibbutz that it was found in its shores. It was in quite shallow water. They found it about 5 meters deep, 5 feet deep. And it was about 7, maybe 200 feet away from the shore. Maybe you can play the video, and we can see the wood, the beams of the boat. This 2,400 years old boat was taken out of the sand of the sea. The only option that wood will be preserved in the seawater for 2,400 years is if it's quickly buried in the sand. So the sand will block the water and the sea and the salt from breaking the wood apart. But once such a finding is found, it's almost impossible to take it out and to preserve it, because if you will not treat it right, it will crumble to pieces within a few months. So it was found in 1975 and it was taken out in 1978. With a long procedure of treating the wood. I see that our time is getting short, so I will move on. You can see the anchor, and on the next slide, you can see the dream of the researcher Yaakov Kahanov, that dreamt to make a replica of this boat. So for 3 years, the story says that it was 2016, if I remember correctly. He went to his close friend in Caesarea, and he told him, my friend, we both have cancer. Our life is very short. I have one dream. I would like to build this replica of this boat and to be able to sail it. I just need the money. And his friend, which had the money, gave him the funds. And for 3 years, this boat was built, but not just built a replica. They used the same techniques that were done to build it. It is believed that the origin of the boat from the west was from the west of Turkey. And they used the same technique with copper nails, with pieces of wood that will connect the beams one to another. They say that the only thing they did not understand how they did in ancient days was to cut the wood along the beams in an ancient way. This boat was sadly, but also happily, Yaakov saw it being built, and of course was participating in all aspects of building. But it was finished and ready to be taken to the water only 2 weeks after he passed away. So he saw it complete, but he did not see it in the water. And on the next slide, we can see the pictures. It's a picture that I took from a YouTube video that you can look for, the Ma'agan Michael boat, or if you look for the Hecht museum boat, you will find this video as well. You can see the team that is sailing the ship. They said it was really difficult. They used natural ropes and not synthetic, so will be exactly like it used to be. And they managed to sail all the way to Cyprus and back. And they describe a very, very difficult sail, all people of the sea. Let's see the next slide. Yeah, this is the Haifa port of today with the many cars that are passing through. And let's go to the next one. I'm not sure we have the time for the next story, but let's try it for the next 5 minutes. Let's see if it's okay, Wayne. Let's go for the next slide. Yeah, so this is a little bit of a Wadi Siakh. This is the patch of valley that you can see in the middle of the map here. Next. And this is a drawing from 1666 of Haifa Bay. You can see Akko on the left and Mount Carmel with no city, just a few homes on the shores. Ruin. Yes, exactly. Here it is. Let's go to the next one. And this is a valley where Saint Berthold settled about 850 years ago. He settled there, and for some, it is believed that he established the Carmelite Discalced order. Today, if you walk this valley, so if we started to talk about the public transportation, from the Haifa University, you would take bus number 37, which will take you to Carmelia. And over there, you will walk 5 minutes to the entrance to this valley, and you will walk down the valley. And on the next slide, you can see some of the ruins and the beautiful spring that is believed that Elijah and Elisha, his disciple, drank from this water. And that's why it was holy for these Christian Crusader monks that settled in this valley. And until today, we can see their ruins. On the next slide, we can see the ruins of the church. And on the next slide, we can see the Elijah cave. There are at least 3 Elijah caves in Haifa that you can visit. But this one is locked by the church and it's belonged to the church. Interestingly, you can see the rock, which is very similar to the rocks in Rosh Hanikra, chalk, the white chalk with many, many dark little flintstones that are popping out. So Wayne, I think it's good time for questions, although we didn't finish
well, you had so much material in Haifa that we almost had a playoff competition in our audience between those who wanted to see more of the modern city, those that wanted to see memories of the port. We have someone on here who used to work for Tzim in the shipping company, the nature slides, the archaeological slides. It really is a remarkable city. One of the early set of questions we have, a few people were asking about, actually, you spoke so much about public transportation and it was fun to take the virtual ride on the cable car. People wanted to know, like, is this a more affordable city than people know that Tel Aviv and Jerusalem are considered very expensive cities to live in, but you know, in comparison, obviously in the north, many people live in smaller communities in Moshavim and some of the even the kibbutzim that you mentioned. How is Haifa viewed today in terms of its livability and affordability, and maybe some of the transportation costs? What does it cost to get on a cable car? What does it cost to take the train from one end to the other? Or the bus line to the Carmelite church? You offered us so many different things. Maybe you could just give some examples.
Yeah, sure. So the cost of living in Haifa is certainly cheaper than it is in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is the most expensive city. Some say, according to some standards, one of the most expensive cities in the world. And Haifa is more affordable, but I must say, as an Israeli, that Israel is an expensive country. Also as a tourist and also as a person that lives here, the lack of I would say the crisis of housing is making the competition on housing very tough, and so the prices are going up and up and up for decades. So on the technical part, to take a train from Tel Aviv to Haifa, you would pay maybe 25 shekels more or less, which are, let's say, $6-7. And to take the cable car, the new cable car that for 19 beautiful minutes and with many stops on the way that you could stop, it cost 5.5 shekels, which is less than $1.50. So it was built as a mean of public transportation to make the Technion accessible, the Haifa University accessible. It's beautiful, it's fun, and it's super cheap. That's one. Maybe you can give me another question, because
Sure.
I see so many questions coming
up. We definitely have hikers in the group. So there's a question about favorite hiking trails in the area, maybe in the Carmel mountain area. Are there specific hikes that beyond what you showed on the Generations Trail that you want to recommend?
Yeah, so there are beautiful hikes all over the Carmel mountain. Some of them are more steep, some of them are longer, some of them are super short. So for example, the one I showed you in Wadi Siakh, where the church and the cave are, is a walk that you can walk from within the neighborhood down the valley. It takes maybe an hour to walk it calmly. If it's some days, it's a very popular place to go into the water and bathe yourself. And then from there, you can walk down all the way to the train station. But Carmel Mountain offers so many trails. In some of them, you can walk from Haifa University all the way down almost to shore. Not all the way to the shore, but almost to the shore. Maybe there is a beautiful trail that goes from Bet Oren Junction, and it goes up into a beautiful cave that is called the Finger Cave. And from there, you can walk on all the way to the artist village of En Hod. Wonderful hike, not too difficult. I would take an entire day for it. I would go in the morning, finish it afternoon, calmly. Maybe, I guess it's about 2 or 3 miles. So maybe another question, or?
Yeah, we'll try one more, and maybe this will just give us a flavor for a future talk. But people are asking about the demographics of Haifa. I know you were there as a graduate student and lived nearby in the area. Can you just, so many of the memories that people have talked to relate to the food of Haifa, Fatouche restaurant, the Druze village, places that are in the area, the different parts of where communities live in different parts of Haifa. Could you maybe just give us a bird's eye view of the different people of Haifa? And that'll probably be as far as we can go today.
So Haifa is estimated to have 290,000 inhabitants today. Haifa is competing lately in the last few years with Rishon LeZion on the 3rd largest city of Israel, but right now it's considered the 3rd largest. There are thousands of Arabs. Some of them are Christian Arabs and some of them are Muslim Arabs. I don't know to tell you right now exact numbers. Also some dozens of thousands of Druze that live in the nearby Daliat el Carmel and Isfiyeh. Inside the Haifa, of course, you have the Baha'i gardens with some Baha'i pilgrims that live there and work in the gardens. And also another village, which is called Kababir, which holds another branch of a religion that was expelled from Islam and found a shelter in Haifa. Back then, it was a village of its own, but now it's integrated as a neighborhood in Haifa with its beautiful mosque. It's similar to the story of the Baha'is. They were expelled from Iran some 150 years ago. It's certainly a topic for an entire tour.
Well, Shahar, we're so grateful for this incredible overview. We couldn't go in depth on any one particular, but I think as a survey of many different aspects of Haifa, and this is not our first episode, as you referred to. We have done others that have explored different pieces and visited a number of museums. People are really excited by this city. It offers so much, and we will have to give that some thought of going deeper in a further episode as some other aspects. That's the great thing about Israel. There's never a lack of content. You just have to keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper. But for me, the highlight of the show was seeing the boat and its rebuilt form sailing in the Mediterranean toward Cyprus with a big sign on the logo of the sail that said Fauna, which only some people are going to know that its origin is also Kibbutz Magam Michael and the two flusher, the plastics factory that has the patent that created the flusher that saved water, the double flush, comes from Fauna factory. And indeed, so many different things in Israel are interconnected in ways that span many years. So Shahar, thanks for bringing Haifa alive and even what has been blooming there in the past couple of weeks and taking us on a tour with your own mishpacha. That was a special touch as well. We enjoyed meeting your family virtually or pieces of your family virtually and going on the cable car ride with you. Look, we know today is a day of mourning for many in Israel as well, and particularly in Jerusalem, and do want to recognize that, part of the challenge of modern day Israeli life is the tragedies that befall Israel community too often. And this is actually a segue so we want to offer our condolences to anyone and everyone who's mourning today, and at the same time recognize that there are bridge builders that are heroes today. And actually our story next week, which we had set up really long ago, months ago, with Israel Prize winning colleague Dr. Yossi Vardi, is looking at a bridge builder in Jerusalem who will be telling us about an amazing project that he's created that does outreach within the Haredi community and teaches modern day subjects and curriculum in ways that are really unprecedented. So for those of you that only know us through our virtual tours, please come back next week on February 5th. We will have a really exciting episode, a conversation between an educator and Dr. Yossi Vardi. You won't want to miss this. What we always try to bring you here are things that are not merely in the news, but that are deeper insights into an Israel that many people don't know. So please, everyone, have a safe week, and we hope we'll have you back with us again next week in future episodes. Thanks, Shahar, Lehitraot.